So the last thing that I would like to discuss very briefly is what is it that respondents, the people that are going to be interviewed, can expect when they walk into the room to do an interview. One of the things they can expect is that the interviewer who questions them will be very respectful, very competent, confident in the best sense of the word. They'll know their stuff. If people are a little bit shy or a little bit uneasy or a little bit not quite sure about this mapping project, the interviewer will take the time to answer questions and to help the person feel more comfortable before we actually turn the recorder on and get the interview going. So in these interviews, it's very private. It's just an interviewer and it's the person that's being interviewed. If the person being interviewed wants to have an observer in the room, that's totally up to them. So the interview space is kept, there's a lot of control that the interviewer has over the interview space. Another really important thing about this project is because the interview is about the person's personal relationship and life on the land, there is a confidentiality resolution in place. It's been signed by the chairman of MMS. All the interviewers take confidentiality very seriously, and there are concrete mechanisms to make sure that the privacy of each person's personal information is protected. So for instance, one of the things in the confidentiality resolution is that nobody, after the interview is over, nobody can look at that person's personal maps, or nobody can listen to that person's audio recording without that person's written permission. And that's very important because people have to feel comfortable sharing their information. Now, in each of the three communities, perhaps a total of 50 or 60 people will be interviewed, carefully selected people will be interviewed. In any one community, let's say Listagouche for instance, if 60 people are interviewed individually, then all of their information using computer technology is combined into one set of maps that speaks for the interests of the Listagouche membership on their land base. And even though each Listagouche respondent's information will be on that final set of maps, there is nobody's names are on those maps. So those maps will contain and display tens of thousands, many thousands of sites, but nobody can point to a particular site and that belongs to so-and-so or so-and-so provided that information. So again, people's privacy is protected. It's the community maps that we're after. So the interviews typically last, the research is designed so that the interviewers typically last about 3 hours. And that includes, coming in, getting a cup of coffee or tea, going over the paperwork forms, which I'll talk about in a second, doing the interview, a couple of breaks, and so on. 3 hours is typical to get through the whole questionnaire. The really, really active harvesters who've been really active over their lifetimes might require a second session, but on the other hand, some of the younger harvesters might require only an hour. So the average works out to about 3 hours. So it's a very friendly time duration for most people. Something that I really want to stress is because the research is well designed and because the interviewers know the methodology and can keep things flowing smoothly, people at these interviews have fun. Even if somebody comes in and they're a bit shy, or somebody comes in and they're not quite sure they want to start this interview, they're not quite sure, within 10 minutes after the recording's on, people are sitting up straighter in their chair, they're really engaged because what they're seeing happen in front of their eyes, there's almost a touch of magic in this. It's not really magic, but there's an energy and a touch of magic where the person sees on these maps in front of them a snapshot picture of their life being created point by point or feature by feature, and people really like that. And by the end of the interview, people are saying, wow, that was really fun, or wow, lots of people say, wow, I had no idea I did so much on the land. And so people leave enthused, optimistic, pleased. They've got a sense that they've participated in something that's going to matter to their community and their children in the future years. So it's a very positive thing. It's not like perhaps some of the interviews you've been involved with in the past. It is a positive, fun experience, and people really do like it. One of the things that takes place at the front end of the interview is there's a very simple permission form where the respondent and the interviewer sign it, and in that signing, the respondent, or the person being interviewed, is giving two permissions. They're giving permission for the interview to take place, and they're giving permission for each of the three communities and MMS in the future years to use that final set of maps to help make good decisions about how the land is used, to help protect the environment, to help protect critical habitat for species, to do good land use planning, and so on. So those are the two permissions each respondent gives at the front end. The respondent also signs an honorarium form. There's a $50 honorarium, which is not a lot of money, but it's a gesture and it's a way to say thanks for each person coming in to do this interview. And at the end of the project, each person who comes in and does an interview gets a beautiful, large, color, professionally done, laminated map of just their information. That's called a map biography, the story of their life on the land. It has a beautiful legend and symbols. It has the person's name, and it's these maps are given to each person at a community feast at the end of the project. Another way of saying thank you to people, and people can keep those maps and do whatever they want with them. And people really like these maps. So I want to wrap up by saying, if you're approached to actually, there's one point I'll say before I do the wrap up. And this is something that when I first say it, people are usually a little bit concerned, or they think I'm perhaps being a little bit sexist, or it's a little bit unfair. But again, I'm asking people to trust that this is true, and it is true. For the purposes that these maps are being used for, most of the people who will be doing interviews will be men. There will be women interviewed, top women harvesters, but most of the people will be men. So when the time comes, please don't be surprised at that if you encounter that, and there are good reasons which can be explained at a future date. So I do want to wrap by saying that those of you who do get approached to do an interview, please seriously consider participating. This is a perhaps once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to capture your story of your life on your land in map form, to make a contribution to a set of community and national maps for that will really, really serve people's interests, community people's interests in the coming decades. And I can almost guarantee this, if you do participate, over the next 5, 10, 20, 30 years, you will have numerous occasions to say to yourself, boy, it was a really good thing I did, it was a really valuable thing I did, and I'm really glad I did it. Those of you who are approached for interviews, for whatever reasons, and this is totally your right, if you say, no, I don't want to do a map interview, my hunch is in the coming years, when you see the final maps for your community, you'll be saying, I should kick myself in the butt. I made a bad decision. I should have participated, because now I understand how valuable these maps are to my people. Thanks very much.